In the inbox late night, glowing screens see the light. Do-do-do, email, everything feels alright.
There is a cohort of people that I audit that have an open rate of like 55 or 60% and a click-through rate of like 0.35 or 0.45%. If that's your program, in some way, your program's kind of garbage. Gmail in particular, the number one factor in building your sending reputation, deciding if they're going to put you in the inbox, is engagement. If people are engaging with your messages, they think they're good. If people are not engaging with your messages, they think these messages are low value and they put you in spam. Internet providers, they're looking for a reason to drop your email. Welcome to the world's best email and retention podcast, hosted by Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts, and we are the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. Today, I want to talk to you about how to measure an email program. So this is foundational information, but if you are a seasoned email marketer, I think it's still worth sticking around because we'll talk about some stuff in the weeds. This is part of a small series that we'll do spread over some weeks, intermingled with other content. And that series would be how to measure the performance of an email program, how to suggest the brand impact of an email program. That's famously difficult to do, but we'll just give you some ideas. How to attribute an email program, kind of getting into multi-channel stuff. And then finally, how to value an email program. What's an email program worth? Is your program valuable? Before we kick into this, I'd like to just take a few minutes to discuss the podcast itself. This is the first episode of the standalone DTC podcast. There was such a warm reception to our content on the main DTC podcast that we branched out. There's a hunger for information about email. Email is not a marketing channel per se, like Google, Meta. Email is it's a free public utility. And because of this, there's this bar you have to reach where just to run your email marketing program, you have to have something that is technically sound such that Gmail and Yahoo will even accept your messages. That bar is reached. The bar is not present in the ads world because you just bid, and the bidding takes care of the volume. In email, reputation takes care of the volume. So a lot of what we'll talk about is email reputation. The purpose of the pod is to raise the bar on email throughout the industry. Email is a distributed communication protocol, and the only reason it's used for marketing is because people like you and me said decades ago, let's use this thing for marketing. There's no Mark Zuckerberg who's saying, email is going to be huge, we're going to put all this effort into it. That doesn't exist. Email is a bottoms-up communication protocol, and email marketing is a bottoms-up community of marketers who drive email forward. And if we don't have those professionals in the next generation of internet marketers, email marketing will wither. So certainly the pod is here to raise that bar. Also, if you are already seasoned, we're going to talk about some things to improve performance. We'll talk about design. You probably want to watch those episodes on YouTube. We'll actually show some designs and talk through them. And then just go into the wide world of email. I'll reach into my network of people I've worked with over my 25 years of e-commerce and digital marketing and bring in some professionals who have interesting things to say about email and where email fits in the mix. Finally, the more people I can show how to taste the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue from email, the more people who could be ready for our service and the email and customer retention team at Pilot House. Now, if you never use our service, if you just use this pod to grow and spread the word of email, we love you for it. Okay, let's kick in and start talking about how to measure an email program. First, I thought we'd set some benchmarks. What I did, I went and found the Klaviyo benchmarks for what an e-commerce email program should run. And then what I also did was went to my data. I run a ton of audits. So I've just got my hands on lots of data. So I aggregated it and took an average of percents, meaning if we had Amazon in here and a mom and pop, they'd have the same weighting. We're just taking a bunch of percents and averaging them just to get an idea of real data that I come across or that we build through our service for clients. And that should give you an idea of where you sit. So Klaviyo says unique open rate should be 40% or is 40% in e-commerce, and unique click-through rate is 1.5. I'll tell you what I think about that. I know, and we're going to talk about this a lot, I know that segments out there are stuffed to the gills with bad Apple privacy opens. So to see Klaviyo saying the average is 40% when I know it's like influenced by all of those bad opens, I'm pretty shocked that that's the average. It's a bit of a frightening average. The 1.5% click-through rate sounds pretty accurate. I think there's a lot of 1.5% click-through rates out there, which is not bad. When I aggregated every data point I could get my hand on from audits and clients, dispassionately, I just plugged it all in and averaged it. I found unique open rate 46%, unique click-through rate 2.2%. 2.2 is significantly higher. Now, that would be influenced by our service, and the way our service works, we run a lower open rate and a higher click-through rate because our segmentation is focused on addresses that are likely to drive traffic. And if an address is unlikely to drive traffic, it gets far less prominent in our deployment and segmentation practices. So that's kind of one of the drivers between that that 2.2 click-through rate. Now, I want to stress this before we move on and talk about measuring a program. There is a cohort of people that I audit that have an open rate of like 55 or 60% and a click-through rate of like 0.35 or 0.45%. And if that's your program, at least in some way, your program is kind of garbage. There can be good things about it, but engagement is not one of them. And Gmail in particular, but also Yahoo, but Gmail in particular, the number one factor they use in building your sending reputation for your domain and deciding if they're going to put you in the inbox is engagement. If people are engaging with your messages, they think they're good. If people are not engaging with your messages, they think these messages are low value and they put you in spam. And they have a reason to do that. They want people to use their service. They sell ads with their service. They feed their email system into their AI. They want people using their email program, Gmail, because it's of benefit to them. So they want people to be excited about checking their email. So if they've got a choice between two messages, one that has this horrible low engagement, one that has this great engagement, or a sender that has a horrible low engagement, and a sender that has a great engagement, they're going to put the great engagement one in and put the other one in spam. And why not just forward all of them? One, there's too many messages. As we discussed, people can send as many messages as they want. There's no bidding system. So there is a plethora of messages. And internet providers bear the cost of transmission. So they're not looking for a reason to send your email. They're looking for a reason to drop your email. They've got massive processes put in place to find messages to drop. So I can't stress enough that it's important that these unique open rates, unique click-through rates are high if you want to get inboxed. And if you've got this thing where it's 56%, 60% open rate, and 0.35% click-through rate, Gmail knows what an Apple privacy open is. And we will talk about this later for anybody who doesn't know, but it's not a real open. So, I mean, it could be a real open, but many are fake. Many are not real opens. So they know that those opens are questionable, and they see a low click-through rate. If that's your situation, there's something wrong with your program and it really needs attention. Finally, I'll just put this through because it's kind of interesting. It's a good number to get out there. The average account that I could account or audit or whatever that I could average, the average person on the list receives 7.2 messages a month. So if your average audience member is getting 7.2 messages a month, you are swimming with the pack. Now, there's some great strategies for one email a week, especially if we talk about that time-saving strategy that we discussed in the last episode, and also just if you've got a smaller number of SKUs. And there's a place for a 3-message a week strategy if you've got an acquisition strategy that we discussed last time. as long as you do the segmentation correct, such that you are not driving too many spam complaints. Now let's discuss email metrics. Again, we're going to discuss how to measure email performance, how to imply email brand, how to attribute, and how to value an email program over the course of more than one talk. We'll start with the most basic, but foundational. Go back and listen to what we did last week. We're going to make a little YouTube channel. You can go and watch it, but watch the one on the 4 strategies and the 4 tactics. I'll repeat those really quickly for you. The 4 strategies were time saving, acquisition, retention, and reach. And the 4 tactics were driving traffic to category and product pages, describing or educating on the brand and product positioning within the email, pushing customers through a curated customer path, and integrating email with a broader media ecosystem. So you'll want to know where you fit in that, and you'll want to measure your program so that you know that the measurements even match, or the outcomes even match the kind of strategy you've chosen. So these analytical talks that we have, I'm not going to do just 4 analytical talks in a row. I'll lose my audience. But as we get through these, they're foundational to understand the really cool stuff that we can do with marketing that we'll talk about. So please pay attention. And, if you're already seasoned, find some new tactics. You can plug these in to what you're already doing. And if you are trying to get from 0 to good, this is a great place to start. First is revenue. We'll do revenue, retention, and inboxing right now. Measuring revenue. So obviously we'll just start with Klaviyo attributed revenue. I love and hate this metric, right? I want to make sure everybody understands how this metric works. And so we'll start by actually describing how Google Analytics 4 attribution works for email. So Google Analytics is click-based attribution, and it's deduplicated, meaning if someone interacts with 3 different channels, in one way or another, one channel gets that credit, right? And maybe the credit's shared, but the point is there's no double attribution. There's no situation where 2 different channels get the credit for something. It's either shared or it's given to a winner. Platform revenue, which would be Klaviyo attributed revenue, Google AdSense revenue, Meta revenue, Facebook, Instagram. Platform revenue, one, has duplicates. There's no way that Klaviyo knows if someone, there's no way at scale or in any useful way that Klaviyo knows if someone clicked through an AdSense ad or something like that. So that's an important, just understand. Klaviyo attributed revenue attributes everything to itself. Second, GA4 is based on clicks. Now, our talk is going to be focused on Klaviyo. I'm just comparing and contrasting to Google Analytics 4. We're going to talk about measurement systems with Klaviyo. But just so you understand, click-based attribution requires someone clicked through before the purchase. Now, there's something that's very common in email. It's called purchasing from the open. I might have described this last year in the podcast, so sorry if we duplicate it. But here's a scenario. You are on the bus on the way home, and you are scrolling through your email, and you see a sale, and you're interested in that sale. You don't have any major sense of urgency to click through on that sale. One, you're going to get a reminder because you're getting an email a week from this brand or something like that. And 2, email is doing its job. Email is like a billboard that someone drives past once or twice a week. It's just creating a spot in someone's mind. There's something very indirect response about email where you're creating a spot in someone's mind for your brand through just all this massive number of essentially free impressions. So you don't need to click because you're very aware. You are very aware. You're so far down the awareness funnel, and you're going to get reminders. So you just keep scrolling through your email. You get home, put your phone down, go to your computer, and just go to the site because you know where the site is, and it's easier to purchase on your computer than it is on your phone. It's just more convenient. You can get some sizing done, whatever. In this situation, you opened the email and open was registered. A click was never registered. A click on that email was never registered. You purchased from the open. Meanwhile, if someone's scrolling through their Instagram or whatever and an ad comes up and they're interested, they kind of have to click. If they don't click, they might not see it again. So GA4 is very favorable to click-focused channels and very disfavorable to impression-focused channels, and we'll call purchasing from the open an impression attributed purchase. We'll call an open an impression. Okay, what does that mean? Default Klaviyo attributed revenue will include purchases from the open. You can actually go change that. You can make it click-based. I don't recommend you do. We'll talk about that in a second, but I don't recommend you change it. Since it allows that purchase from the open, and it's hungry, it does 100% attribution if someone's interacted. And as we just discussed, Apple Privacy Opens. Maybe I'll explain this just in case anyone's unaware. When someone opens up a new iPhone says, do you want to protect your identity? And like 90% of people say, yes. And when that setting is set, if somebody opens an email from a brand once, that little pixel is cached somewhere. And then when someone opens again in future, the cached pixel fires, and it's cached like on an Apple server in California somewhere, something like that, Mountain View. So when that pixel fires automatically, the email automatically shows as opened just because it was sent, even though someone didn't even open the email. So if someone's got Apple Privacy, their open rate is huge, through the roof. And you can go in and you can look at emails that you've sent and go into the deliverability area and look at the open rate on iCloud, which is Apple. Huge open rate. Unrealistic open rate, like 95%. Yeah, right. So by default, Apple Privacy Opens and Klaviyo attributed revenue count as an interaction, and Klaviyo counts the revenue. So you can have a situation where people didn't even interact with your email, but Klaviyo will attribute the purchase. Okay, so this makes Klaviyo attributed revenue more than in reality, right? It overstates. All platform revenue overstates in some way, but let's just say it overstates. Meanwhile, Google Analytics 4 understates. It totally understates the way email drives business. All of the strategies I will give you, nothing's out of the box. None of the stuff we talk about is out of the box because Gmail, Facebook, none of these companies are interested in making it easy for you to drive a second purchase for free. They want your second purchase through their ads channels. So, the information is we're always working to get the information. We're always climbing up a hill. And of course, they're not working to make sure Google Analytics 4 properly measures customer retention. They want new customers, and if it's already a customer, they want that customer to purchase through ads again. So, no surprise, Google Analytics 4 understates how email drives business, which is one, performance. People do click through, they buy right there because they see something they want, they buy it. But also this year of essentially free impressions and just really driving back the business, helping them understand your business slowly, building that place in their mind so that when they are ready to purchase, they purchase through you because you are the brand who's really captured them. All right. So in reality, Klaviyo attributed revenue is high. GA, Google Analytics revenue is low. You can go in and mess around with that attribution. You can make it so Apple Privacy Opens don't count. You can make it so opens don't count at all and it's click-based. I don't recommend you do. We are going to get to an attribution section. We'll talk about attribution. I don't recommend you change it unless you really know what you're doing because all the professional, like our team, anybody you hire, you contract, they're all familiar with the default settings. So you're taking away that like feel it in their bones kind of knowledge if you change that attribution window. Rather than change it, just understand its weaknesses, understand its strengths too. Its strengths are it shows you how well email is influencing. We'll talk about that in a second. So it's got its strengths, it's got its weaknesses. Just leave it as is and just gather a wider set of metrics that you use to understand how email is affecting your business. On our end, we do apply a factor to the default Klaviyo attributed revenue to suggest how much actual Shopify revenue it would be. I won't give that factor, and it kind of depends on the brand and it depends on the vertical and the marketing plan. But just so you know, if you study, you can figure out kind of where that should be. Now, the second one we're going to discuss is Klaviyo revenue as a share of Shopify revenue. This is very easy to find. You just go on the main screen of Klaviyo, use the little drop down, put in a date range. It'll show you the Shopify revenue, and right next to it, the Klaviyo revenue. And in little brackets, it'll tell you the share of Shopify revenue that Klaviyo attributed revenue is. And this is why this is powerful. When you see that share or the spread, when you see the spread shrink or the share increase, so Klaviyo attributed revenue is, some percentage. When that percentage increases, it's an indication that email is becoming more influential in your business. When it shrinks, when the share shrinks, it's an indication that email is becoming less influential. So it's crude in that, of course, Klaviyo revenue is not Shopify revenue. It's like inches are not centimeters, although they're related. Klaviyo revenue is not Shopify revenue, but this is still useful to gauge the directionality of email within your digital ecosystem. I use this a lot. It's like one of the first things I look at on an account, just to eyeball it, figure out what's going on. Super powerful. And as you do maybe later mess with attribution, it adjusts this rate. Another reason to not adjust your attribution, it just changes this share, and then you kind of lose sense of where email fits. The third metric to discuss for revenue is placed order rate. Placed order rate is orders divided by emails sent. In the email world, we like to do revenue per email sent. Klaviyo doesn't show that though. It shows placed order rate. So we just migrated. We just do placed order rate because it's easy. It's in the platform. Clients can see it. So when you think about this, we've got revenue that we just discussed, and we've got revenue in relation to Shopify, and now we've got revenue in relation to emails sent, which means we can see revenue in relation to the broad direction of your business and revenue in relation to how aggressive you are with your outbound communications, right? So these three together, it's like a little trifecta, right? Now, if you can increase revenue on a stable placed order rate, that's a massive win. It means you're being more efficient. You're sending less emails to have the same revenue, right? I mean, of course you can increase revenue by just sending out more emails, but you watch this placed order rate to get an understanding. I mean, if you're kind of like revenue goes up and the placed order rate just goes down and craters to a very low level, you're starting to move in a direction where you're going to incur some inboxing problems and spam problems with the brand. So you use the two next to each other. Those are three rates for revenue that you should watch. And why? Right? The placed order rate, by the way, that is just Klaviyo attributed orders. So as you change your attribution channel, your attribution window, that will change as well. Although I don't recommend you do that right now. The second set of, we're going to do revenue, retention, inboxing. We'll do 3 metrics for each. So you got 9 metrics, things that you can look at and study closely for your account. Under retention, we're actually going to go into Shopify. Why? Because we just discussed email revenue. That's email attributed revenue. Customer retention is not email. Email is a tool. Customer retention is a methodology, right? So there are many tools in the methodology of customer retention. Email, SMS, refer a friend, loyalty, direct mail, outbound phone, all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff fit into retention based on the scale of your business. So we're not concerned with email orders when we talk about customer retention. We are concerned with absolute orders and who is placing them within your business as a whole. So your meta channel affects your customer retention. If you have a repeat buyer, if you're using a buyer cookie and you have a repeat buyer campaign, that meta is affecting your customer retention. And we'll talk about a little quick way to separate that so you can zero in on what email might be influencing. Anyway, first step, go right into Shopify, and one of the default little things there is Shopify buyer retention. And it's just buyers who are repeat buyers divided by buyers. No secret, we'll just tell you, because it's sprayed all over the internet, 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 of your buyers every month should be repeat buyers. When you get someone to purchase again without paying ads to bring them in, when you get a repeat purchase, a second purchase without your ads cost to acquire a customer, you make more profit on that second order. And that just increases your free cash flow. So you want as many of those repeat purchases as you can possibly get. You don't want your repeat rate to be too high because that means you're not investing in your business. So look, Shopify buyer retention, 20%, 25%. It depends on the business. It can be huge if you're jewelry and apparel or any kind of business that has quarterly drops, right? Second is Shopify cohorts. And this might not be available to you depending on the Shopify package that you have, the tier that you have. If it's there, it's just one of the main little cells as well. It'll be near buyer retention. So here's the trick. Click on it, leave the 12-month time frame as is. You can leave repeat customers as is, although you can also select net revenue if you want. But you can leave those two as is and then change the months drop down to quarters. And what it's going to show you is a little kind of squiggly line and 3 quarters. Quarter 0, quarter 1, quarter 2. Quarter 0 is same quarter. Quarter 1 is 1 quarter later. Quarter 2 is 2 quarters later. And it will show you the percentage of people who are repeat purchasing in those quarters. Why are quarters convenient? Look, you want someone to repeat within 90 days, right? So it just makes sense just from a really basic business perspective. Like if someone repeats after 60 days or 30 days, it's not that big of a difference. So in the grand scheme of things, so you're happy either way. So you will see a dark blue line and a light blue line. What you want is to increase the light blue line, move it above the light blue. The dark blue line is this year, the light blue line is last year. You want to increase the dark blue line above the light blue line in the most recent quarter. Now, optimally, you want the dark blue line above the light blue line across the whole thing. But you know what? If you end up in a situation where the dark blue line increases in the most recent quarter, quarter 0, and drops below the light blue line in the last quarter, the later quarter, what that means is you have drawn repeat purchases forward, which improves your inventory turn, which also improves your free cash flow and your profitability, right? So just driving the repeat purchase improves your P&L, but drawing that repeat purchase forward compounds that. So you want to study these two things to understand the quality of your retention program. Now, this last one here, this is a bit of it's manual. There's nothing out of the box for this. But just go into Klaviyo, create a segment that's people who purchased in a given month and who were created more than 90 days ago. You got to go through and find the drop down. So how many people purchased where the record, the address was added more than 90 days ago? And you just divide that number by your purchases for the month. And what you've got is a share of purchases that are stale. 90 days, they're pretty much outside of all your ad stuff, right? So this is an easy way to understand, another way to understand the quality of your retention program. So if this is increasing, one, it can increase because you're actually doing a worse job because you're taking longer to reactivate people. So, you got to pay attention to all these metrics to understand what's going on. But those purchases, email is the primary influencer on those purchases. All right, there's 3 metrics to understand customer retention. And now we'll finish off with inboxing. Thank you for sticking around. The first thing I look at for inboxing is actually unique open rate, because you can have a low unique click-through rate, and it's just normal because maybe you've got a single SKU kind of business, and once someone understands the product, they don't need to go back to the site anymore, so they just click less. So there can be accounts that are just structurally lower click-through rate. But unique open rate, if that thing is critically low, it always means you have an inboxing problem. Always, always, always. So the first thing I look at is unique open rate. I just told you, Klaviyo said 40% is normal. We see 46 as normal. I do a lot of audits where 50 is normal, right? Although it's 50, 55, although in a bad way. So that should give you an idea of where things start looking bad. Second, unique click-through rate. And so these two are pairs. Like I said, Gmail's paying very close attention to these. And unique click-through rate can be low, but if you're running a low open rate and a low unique click-through rate, you're pretty much going to be in the spam folder. So I look at these two very closely. Now, it would have been nice to add bounce to this list, but I was doing 3 per section of 3 for 9. So bounce isn't making the list. That said, if you are getting a lot of really bad bounces, your unique open rate's going to go down. It's just like, if you end up a little bit of a bounce apocalypse, your open rate drops, so you'll know. You'll know very quickly. So it's kind of like just further down the line, so it's okay. Hey, spammers, quick edit. In the next segment, I discuss spam complaint rate thresholds of 0.3, 0.2, and 0.1. I meant 0.03, 0.02, and 0.01. Please do not run a spam complaint rate of 0.3. Spam complaint rate is our third metric. Very important. And here's some in the weeds stuff. If you go to, you heard it here first, if you go to the Google page on spam complaint rate requirements for Gmail, the number is going to be like 0.1 to 0.3%. 0.3 is really, really, really bad, and it should be below 0.1. Tell you what, if you run a spam complaint rate of 0.1 in Klaviyo, you are in trouble. Here's the reason. Gmail does not report spam complaints to any sender. If you want to get spam complaint information, you need to install Postmaster tools. We can help you with that if you need. What happens is Gmail is 60% of everybody's email program. So you've got like half of your, half or more, like realistically more than half of your spam complaints aren't reported, which just craters the spam complaint, the numerator in the equation spams divided by emails sent. That was a little wordy and technical. Bottom line, don't ask what's in the spam complaint metric inside Klaviyo. Just understand this metric and understand the thresholds. If you're running above 0.3, it's bad. If you're running 0.2, but everything else is really good, like people really like your messages, for some reason you've just got a business that drives a bit more spam. Maybe it's a really competitive industry, and so people just have a lot in their inbox from that industry. But you've got a good open, good unique click, good other metrics, your bounces are tight, right? Then you're okay with 0.2 and you're fine with 0.1. That's kind of just the situation on that metric, right? Very important metric. Now, here's an interesting point. If your unique open rate is going down, indicating an inboxing problem, and your spam rate and unsubscribe rate are going down, that's not actually a good thing. People need to see an email to unsubscribe or click spam. So, usually you think, I'm sending more emails, so, my unsubscribe and spam will go up because I've got more in the inbox. You start sending more emails and unsubscribe and spam go down. Classic problem. Classic. I see that a lot in audits. What's required to improve spam complaint rates is huge. You have to treat recent addresses different than stale addresses that have never engaged, haven't engaged in a while, have engaged recently. Got to treat buyers separately than prospects. You have to treat event types differently. Like active on site is a visit, but they didn't necessarily interact with email. You don't need to interact with email to be active on site. So, and then you got to traffic cop your flows and make sure you're not just totally pummeling someone with automated emails. So there's a lot involved in improving your spam complaint rate. I find the rate's usually about 10% of the unsubscribe rate. Look, final little point here. There is a deliverability score on Klaviyo. And I don't look at it. People on my team do, and it's fine. But it's just a calculation based on Klaviyo's thresholds. And I just told you that you can use segmentation to totally pump your open rate with bad opens, nasty Apple privacy opens that when you drive a lot of Apple privacy opens, many of those people have not opened your email for could be years. And eventually they go, why are you still emailing me? And they hit spam, right? And using those opens drives down your click-through rate, and Gmail goes, oh, there's a really bad click-through rate. So it's possible to get a good deliverability score in Klaviyo and actually have nothing good going on in your account. It's possible, right? Oh, I just told you the spam rate's low, the unsubscribe rate is low. Awesome, right? Well, that's because you're in the spam folder, right? Open rate's huge because we're sending to all these fake things, so it looks okay. Click-through rate is bad, and then it calculates the whole thing and says, oh, you got a good open rate, good spam complaint rate, good unsubscribe rate. Your click-through rate is really low, but it's fine. And you get a good deliverability score, and you're like in the spam folder. And the only revenue you're seeing attributed is stuff that just comes in the funnel because Gmail tends to favor newer addresses. They just make sure that, if someone signs up, they get the first messages that they need. They've got like a window where they're very friendly. And after you pass that window, it becomes unfriendly. So Klaviyo is just reporting just what was coming through the funnel anyway, and email's hardly doing anything at all. And your deliverability score in Klaviyo is great. So yeah, that was a lot to drop on you. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, 40 minutes for the first episode. I'm not sure if we're going to have to keep them shorter than this. We'll see. If you liked it, please subscribe, tell your friends, tune in often. We will have great guests and great chats. Thank you, and everybody have a good time spamming, yeah?
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey entrepreneurs and spammers, remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.